viewers. Diplomania. JSIA's flagship society welcomes you to another episode of our interview series, Candid Diplomacy, where we talk to professors, students, and other eminent personalities in the field of diplomacy and international relations. I am Marsha Tokus, and today we are honored to have with us Professor and Ambassador Ravi Thapar, the Executive Dean of Jindal School of International Affairs at OP Jindal Global University. He has served as India's envoy at Lebanon, New Zealand, Western Samoa, and NEO, and also at Panama, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua. Earlier during his diplomatic career, he was assigned as Charge d'Affaires and the Consul General of India in Milan, Italy. His long diplomatic tenure culminated with his elevation to the rank of Secretary to the Government of India. Prior to his taking up of the position as the Ambassador of India to Panama, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua, Ambassador was also assigned as Additional Secretary, Counterterrorism, Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi. After retiring from the Foreign Services, Ambassador Ravi Thapar is currently enrolled as an advocate with the Delhi High Court. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Masha. Yeah, please go ahead.
So we'll be starting with the first question. As an opportunity for our viewers to know you better, I would like to ask about your journey. So you started as a law student, you joined the Foreign Services, and now also teaching as a professor. What are some of the key events in your life which led to where you stand today?
Well, you know, the wanderlust, as it were, has been there even from the beginning. I used to hear both relatives and also met up with some people who've been abroad. I really got interested in foreign affairs. And of course, you know, there was a parallel stream, call it because of family background, whatever. We've had lawyers in the family. So I was interested in things which are legal. And I must say, I was quite passionate about it. I took part in a lot of moots, mock courts, happened to win some prizes, spoke in a lot of debating, declamation contests, etc. Had the good fortune of speaking in seminars where even judges of the Supreme Court were there as a law student. And so this is how the journey began. I could have ended up as an advocate, really, in the Delhi, in any high court. And many of my batchmates did make it, you know, through the judicial, through the legal profession, they became judges. But perhaps nature meant it otherwise. And I sat for the competitive exams, even though I had got a scholarship for LLM by the UGC. This is summer of '82. And God was very kind. I just call it God's grace. I got through the prelims and the main, and then lo and behold, I was sailing across in foreign service. And one has not looked back, except that there was, again, a hearkening back to law when I was serving as a counsel at the Indian consulate in San Francisco. I was counsel for commerce and information. I was very inspired by a lot of our talented people, Indo-Americans in the Silicon Valley, and I wanted to do something better and upgrade my skills. So I took a sabbatical and I went and did a Master's of Law at University of California, Berkeley. And got back after that again in the Foreign Service and been handling, you know, India's, Indian issues, trying to represent them at headquarters and also before foreign audiences. One of my, of course, other interests has been marketing India's business opportunities. I really enjoy focusing on doing business, getting better business for India. And that was one of my very strong interests as a Consul General, as an ambassador. And I did set up some India business forums and India Friendship Societies, where we got together people of the country where I was accredited, businessmen from there, entrepreneurs, professionals, and also Indians who were settled there. And we did a lot of events. in short, trying to get those countries, the business circles in those countries connected with the centers of business and talent in India. So that is how it has been, and that's how I handed off, my kind of finished off my innings at Panama. I had the privilege again to receive the Honorable Vice President, the then Vice President at Panama, Shri Venkaiah Naidu ji, and also a year later on at Costa Rica, again in March 2019. Vice President was there to visit Costa Rica, and I retired in end October 19 and joined the bar. But COVID, of course, was very much prevalent all over. And this seemed to be a nice opportunity where OP Jindal, something after my heart. So I sent off an email to the management, and I was picked up, and here I am.
That's really wonderful, sir. Really wonderful. Let's go ahead. As the Additional Secretary in the Counterterrorism Department of the Ministry of External Affairs, you have led India's counterterrorism dialogues with a number of countries. And when we generally think of counterterrorism as the term, it seems more of an aspect of intelligence units, military, security, risk, etc. So, according to you, how does diplomacy and international relations, especially in the case of India, play a key role in the field of counterterrorism measures?
So, there is, in all these things, there is a kind of a national projection. And there is a summation of all the issues. And it does require coordination between various governments and agencies. Terrorists fly off from the borders, they leak across, and they engage with, sympathizers, they radicalize people, they have illegal funding from all kinds of sources. This needs a lot of cooperation and coordination. And as is typical, any cooperation or coordination is always done by the foreign ministry. Of course, the line ministries, the technical ministries, which is in our case, the Ministry of Home Affairs, and in some countries, the Ministry of Interior, in the case of US, for example, is the Department of Homeland Security. There are other departments which are always there, but it's the Foreign Office normally which leads this dialogue. So what the Foreign Office does, the Ministry of External Affairs, we lead the talks, and we have with us member delegates from other ministries. We have people from, the police, we have people from intelligence, we have people from counter-terrorism operations, etc., etc. And likewise, there are similar counterparts in other countries, and their delegations are also led by the desk or nodal officer in the Foreign Office, and that's how the dialogue takes place. The other reason, of course, is that we try to, look at similarities, because terrorism is something which is not just affecting one particular country. It affects this whole planet. The damage to property, human life is pervasive. And it can happen in one part of the country, in one part of the world, but it could also similarly take place in other parts of the world. And so all countries are equally concerned, and therefore there is requirement to take a kind of multi-country global action. Unfortunately, we still don't have a comprehensive treaty on counterterrorism. I mean, we have proposed, India did as far back as 1993, we put up a draft at the UN for having a counterterrorism treaty, but there are differences on the concept of terrorism, and because of that, there's still not a treaty. But yes, at the non-treaty level, between government to government, and sometimes between quite a few governments at the regional level, plurilateral level, multilateral level, there is cooperation, and naturally the Foreign Office has to lead the charge. And so I had the privilege to do that for about 3+ years with a lot of countries, North America, Canada, Japan, Germany, Italy, Australia, Indonesia, Singapore, Mauritius, and such like, counterparts. So that's what it is. Again, the issue really, according to me, if you ask me, which is the next, I think, theme which emerges from this is, why is there counterterrorism requirement and why is there radicalization? I think it is primarily because a lot of youngsters, youth populations in many countries don't have enough or don't have structured economic livelihood, don't have professional skills, and they are kind of feeling lost, and for want of doing anything else, just to feel that they want a mission, something which is passionate in life. Some of them get interested or diverted into these ideological themes, and you mix it with religion, which is a very emotive issue, and you have a very dangerous cocktail. So that's how radicalization takes place. We have youth populations in many countries who, frankly, if they were professionally qualified, would probably be more occupied. Although we have this paradox that even some professionals, unfortunately, also gets distracted into extremism because of religious sentiments. But more often than not, it is people who are unemployed, underemployed, or who feel that they're having a raw deal, their society or community is having a rough or a raw deal, and they are being shortchanged. And those are the people who start getting swayed into ideological pastimes. And that's how radicalization takes place, sometimes through active meetings, sometimes mostly through online also. So this is how we all of us meet at different places, and then we exchange information, and on the basis of those information, policies are drawn up, cooperation is deepened, and we try and curb this menace, which is a pervasive universal menace and needs to be checked if we have to live on this planet. We have to live in a spirit of cooperation and goodwill and help each other out, and ensure that there is peace and structure and stability. And all these destructive or disruptive aspects should be curbed to the best possible extent.
Right, Professor. So now let's come down to my personal favorite. As a diplomat, you have had a chance to interact with a lot of people, people abroad, in and around. So I would really like it if you could please share at least one experience that you've had during your interaction with one person that kind of left you intrigued and something that stood out.
It's very difficult to single out. I personally feel that there's a lot to learn from a lot of talented people. We get exposed to different kinds of talent and expertise. We come across, of course, political personalities, very, very impactful persons who are respected in their societies. And we come across captains of industry, we come across engineers, we come across academics. I think there's a bit of learning from each if you're sensitive and open-minded and willing to listen. There would be opportunities. So as you go by, you try and what you try and do, if I may say, is try and resonate on some of the points which you see are being projected in the dialogue, and how that person's skill or expertise has helped him to influence his community. And you try and learn. Of course, diplomats are not supposed to be political. We just want to be better professionals. But yes, improving our knowledge realm, improving our mindset, and just trying to transport oneself in that situation where that leader is. Maybe it's a challenge he's facing. Maybe there's a disaster. Maybe there's a pandemic, as it were. Maybe there's an economic issue, and how he's handling that. Well, those are things to be watched, and lessons to be learned from there. So that's how you pick up a bit from here and a bit from there, and I think it all adds up. And if you're sensitive, you could emerge stronger. It also exposes you to some hardships. I mean, all diplomatic postings are not necessarily in the best of capitals. They could be in hardship positions. I mean, we've had positions. I mean, as a High Commissioner to New Zealand, I was in a very developed country, but I used to take, visits also to Samoa and Niue. And these are South Pacific islands to which I was also High Commissioner. These are far-flung islands in the South Pacific. And one used to see, for example, at Niue, it is a very, very small country in the South Pacific beyond the date line. And one used to see how basic and how difficult conditions are. Of course, India is a development partner and we're trying to help them out. But these are experiences which stay in your mind and makes you a stronger, more diversified professional. So I'd like to put it that way. And I'd not like to just kind of single out any particular personality or person. I would just say that let the fish net be out and try and pick up the best pieces, best information, best talent, best qualities, and try and add on to your experience, and it should help you to make a more well-rounded personality and a better professional for representing your country in a more optimal and a more professional manner. So that's how I have been. But of course, as I said, talking to businessmen and talking to captains of industry has been, of course, a very strong interest, because I always felt if I do that, and if I can reach out to them and through them to their business ecosystems, I would be helping India. Because for me, getting business for my country, somehow getting a project, going for India, which would help India's economy, which would help our industry, bring in some investment. Well, that kind of was very, very interesting for me. And so those kind of people I really paid a lot of attention to. So that was my focus. If you're saying, I would just say that just the fact that you travel, just the fact that you meet very, very different kinds of segments and stakeholders abroad, I think it's a great experience. And of course, when you're back also at the Ministry of External Affairs, I've handled very responsible positions. I've also been the Joint Secretary for Latin America and Caribbean countries, and India's dialogue with the LAC region, visits of our dignitaries. I was on the visit which Srimati Pratibha Patil, the then President of India, took to Brazil, Mexico, and Chile. I was on the presidential flight. I've also accompanied Shri Pranab Mukherjee. He was then the Foreign Minister of India, very, very learned, person. And for the Joint Commission meetings, I've had the occasion to bring to India as charge d'affaires. When I was in Suriname, I escorted the President of Suriname to India. And he had meetings with the Prime Minister, President, state banquet at Rashtrapati Bhavan. We took him around. We showed him, of course, Agra. We took him to Bangalore, Indian Institute of Science, Infosys, all these important business and cultural spots. So there's been, a lot of interaction with all kinds of people, and everything has been a learning experience. I have sometimes also cited even to my class students, as a probationary officer when I was still on training. one day the foreign secretary, the then foreign secretary, Shri Salman Haider, walked into the external publicity division where I was taking training and said, Ravi, what are you doing? I said, sir, well, just trying to learn the ropes, whatever the MEA is teaching me. And he said, well, get ready to fly to Maldives. And, a diplomatic passport was issued. And lo and behold, I was on a special Air Force flight. And who was on that flight? Shri Narasimha Rao, a very small plane, Narasimha Rao, foreign minister, and on the same flight, as a courtesy, the then foreign minister of Pakistan, Sahibzada Yaqub Khan, as a special courtesy, friendly gesture, he was on the same flight. And I flew in that plane. So from Delhi to Maldives, Male. And I was still not confirmed in the service. This was just when I was under training. So, these kind of experiences you have when you're in the service. And so one has escorted dignitaries from day one, and you keep meeting important persons, personalities. As an ambassador, of course, you always have to interact with the president. You have to present your credentials, and you have to bring out the points which are your country's priorities. The last ones I've done as ambassador to the president, to the president in Beirut, in Lebanon, then to the Governor General in Wellington, in New Zealand, also to Samoa Prime Minister, to Niue, the Prime Minister. I've also done it at, I presented my credentials at Panama, and then Costa Rica, Nicaragua, all these dignitaries one has had occasion to meet. So you pick up some of the stuff and you try and imbibe and inculcate, internalize some of these experiences at a very senior level and try and improve your personality and your skills just to be a better professional. So let me put it that way. It's a wide cross-section of people. And of course, Silicon Valley was amazing. One comes across all kinds of innovators. As a very young official, I remember having met, there's a name. Now, of course, it's not much of a do, but in those days, I'm talking of 90s, the Pentium chip, which was the Intel Pentium chip. So this was invented by a team which was led by Vinod Dham, an Indo-American. And so as a young official, as a council commerce in Silicon Valley, I have met up with these people. Or for that matter, the Indus Entrepreneurs is a very, very elite kind of business club. It has chapters all over the world now: Washington, Tokyo, Delhi, Chennai, Paris, everywhere, London. And I have actually spoken to them. They normally meet every third Tuesday of the month, and they mentor startups and they meet over dinner. I have actually addressed them on business opportunities in India as a very, very young official. So these are very, very senior captains of industry, who are people who are all over, and one has had exposure to them as a diplomat. So these are the experiences, I would just say, which have mattered and which still resonate with me in my mental processes and help me to be a better professional and a better representative for my country and for my people. And now for the university, of course. One is representing the university.
That's really interesting, Professor, I must say. It was just so fun listening to all this. As a lawyer diplomat, what has been your opinion on the effectiveness of the international law, as well as all the enforcement bodies in the current international world order, especially if we talk about, let's say, the ICJ or the International Criminal Court? What do you think? How big a role, according to you, does it play in terms of the current international world order?
The law, the stature and enforceability and position of international law will keep improving as the, I would say, level of development and upgrading of systems, knowledge base in societies increases. Because once there are better informed stakeholders, there are more developed countries economically, then they are in a mood, or they are more appreciative of the need to have structured processes. But countries which are overwhelmed with poverty, countries which are deeply disturbed because of malnutrition, or who have millions of people who are in a state of desperation and see no literally hope or light in their lives, it's very difficult for them to comply with international processes because they have very, very restless populations. So my take on this is that as and when and as more and more countries get upgraded, which means actually the global south, the condition of the global south improves, and there is upgradation of systems, upgradation of economic opportunities, more equitable sharing of wealth, more education, more skills. I think the adherence and compliance, sentiment, there's always a sentiment, there's a desire to uphold, that will increase. And they'll be more sensitive to the international, to the mandate of, or to the recommendations of these international bodies. The biggest enforcement, of course, is under the UN Security Council, and but then there has to be a complete endorsement by all the permanent members. Sanctions, even they can even take, if required, they can even take, they will even engage in intervention of a defense nature. But then it needs endorsement by all the permanent members. That's the enforcement at the apex level. You asked me about the ICJ. ICJ has a lot of member countries who have voluntarily accepted its jurisdiction. And that, of course, makes it a little more acceptable. But the International Criminal Court, that is still a matter which is left to the preferences of various countries. I want to quote here, or want to cite here, the fact that India, for example, is not a signatory to the International Criminal Court. And the reason for that is because we do not want our court jurisdiction, the criminal jurisdiction, the authority of the Indian apex judicial bodies to be diluted by an international body. We would like, for example, the Supreme Court of India and the higher judiciary to adjudicate on matters which pertain to our life and liberty. We do not want foreign entities to tell us, and we don't want their jurisdiction, the Supreme Court of India and the higher judiciary's authority, to be diluted by an international body. And that is the same, it's the same story with the US. They have also not acceded to the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. So to that extent, this is compromised, or these international bodies, they are not still enforceable. But there is a branch of public international law and there's private international law. Again, there is the acceptance of jurisdiction by the various parties. In public international law also, the states who have signed up to the treaties, for the treaties being implemented, they have ratified them. Well, they subject themselves to the jurisdiction of the treaty. And that's for the bigger public cause, for the bigger global cause, because they feel that the more strong a treaty is, the more there are members under the regime of the treaty, the more will be its efficacy, and the more will there be stability. It's an important treaty, so it needs more members to sign up. So that's in public international law. In private international law, of course, there is for example, the arbitration processes. Again, the parties will accept the jurisdiction of a particular arbitration panel. There is the the arbitration, International Court of Arbitration, or the arbitration panel at under the International Chamber of Commerce at Paris, UNISTRAL. And there are similar bodies or panels which private parties accept, and they play a very important role, because otherwise judicial processes and proceedings, in particularly for businessmen, can be very long and prolonged, and that wastes a lot of their business time, and in business, time is money. Investment opportunities might be gone by then if it is prolonged, and so they're in a hurry, and arbitration proceedings are accepted. Again, here also you find, just like in the States, in the public international law, it all depends on accepting the jurisdiction of the body. So in the case of public international law, in the case of treaties, the enforceability will depend on member states accepting the jurisdiction. For example, in the criminal court, we have not accepted that jurisdiction. India has not accepted, US has not accepted, many countries have not, because they believe it will dilute their jurisdiction, their national jurisdiction. But in the case of the ICJ, we have, because in civil matters, in matters of territorial waters, exclusive economic zone, law of the sea, and all these matters, we believe that it is the international bodies which must adjudicate, and we would like the treaty to be strong. And so it does have a role. And therefore, it is, if nothing else, it gives a kind of a statement, or a statement of benchmark. It identifies a certain standard which all members must comply with. It's a benchmark. It's a standard which all countries must live up to. So at least that is identified, and we don't have policemen actually going and marshals going and enforcing that law, but it has a lot of persuasive value. It has a lot of moral value. It has a lot of public opinion value. That's also very, very important today, because we live in a very interconnected, interdependent world. I mean, look at what Twitter and look at what Facebook and other social media can do to the business fortunes of a corporation or a country. So if a country is seen as non-compliant, if a country is seen as violative, for example, South China Sea, the Permanent Court of Arbitration, mandate on the South China Sea, people do not like what China has done. It has not accepted the verdict. So public opinion is not in favor of this. So public opinion also matters. So in today's world, that is also very important. So that brings in enforceability indirectly. Likewise, as I said, at private international law level, it is, of course, the corporations. We've had that case. We've had these things happening. Keynes Energy, Vedanta, I think the arbitration panels, for example, where India, the government of India was one of the parties, and some of these private corporations were also a party, and the arbitration panel at Singapore didn't exactly rule in our favor, and then we are trying to appeal against it, etc. So these are, examples of how arbitration proceedings at the private international law can also become very compelling, and they can assume a position of importance. So as I would say, the human conversation, as the economic conversation, as the societal upgradation and systems get upgraded, the compliance with law also becomes stronger and stronger. I mean, is it not so that today we are in a law-abiding society? Gone are the days when there was jungle law. I mean, it's a very, very simple example. Today, we are in a very civilized world. As you get more civilized, you get so very, very integrated. Today, the law is so strong. Why go far? Look at the IT law in our country. People have got into trouble because they are tweeting wrong things. They are misusing, and look. So the law has come, in fact, right down to your, to your mobile. And so if you are non-compliant with the legal processes in the ICT domain, you can get into big trouble. So that's the degree to which law. So the same thing happens as societies get more and more interdependent, interconnected, more civilizational aspects, get upgraded, and people need predictability. They need structure. For example, you're an entrepreneur, you're an innovator. You want patents. You don't want someone to copy your design. If you're a business entity, you want trademarks. You don't want your, icon to be duplicated, someone to take your trademark away. You're very, very mindful of that. So in e-commerce today, there's a lot of, new law which is coming up on piracy, website hacking, etc., copying of designs. So all these are issues. How are these coming up? Tomorrow, we're going to have artificial intelligence, and we're going to have blockchain technologies. Because the world is struggling today how to make sure that blockchain technology does not engage in money laundering, and that it is accountable for. Otherwise, a lot of black money will be just laundered away. So again, the law has to come into process. So as societies move up, as the economies look up, and as business interests get intertwined and interdependent, the need for legal processes also becomes very, very compelling and important. So the more civilizational aspects get upgraded between countries, the more predictability and structure will be required. They want their ships, they want their aircraft to run in time, they want their citizens to be taken care of, they want their health to be taken care of, they don't want violation of their copyrights, patents, etc. All this means laws. And at some point, because so many countries are involved, it's not just the law of one country, it has to be international law. So the earliest examples, of course, was the movement of the ships. So that's where it all started from, international law. Moving across, a ship is flying the flag of that particular country. The ship is, literally, if a crime is committed on that ship, so the law of the country, the flag of that country which that ship is flying, that country's law will apply. So these are old practices which started. Right now, as the world gets more and more connected, as economic multi-supply chains take place, global supply chains, multiple vendors feeding into corporate activities, etc. There's a complete heterogeneity of stakeholders. So you need someone to regulate it. Like the ICANN, it's a regulatory body on the internet, the domain name and other things. The ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, which is handling the aircraft movement, the International Telecom Union, ITU. These are all international bodies. Similarly, we have very important today is global warming, climate change. It's not a law, but the UNFCCC is, conference, on climate change is meeting every now and then, conference of parties, and we're trying to get the world motivated to stick to, temperature, global warming not exceeding 1.5 degrees beyond pre-industrial levels. So these are all benchmarks, standards identified by enlightened people and experts, and people need predictability, structure, and therefore compliance with legal processes becomes important. As societies get upgraded, as civilizational improvement takes place, the need for application of private and public international law becomes stronger and stronger. But as far as enforceability is concerned, which you asked about, well, again, this depends on voluntarily, if you accepted the jurisdiction, signed up on the treaty, then you are bound. More and more countries are doing it because they believe it's for a better cause, for a bigger cause, because that's how the world is. Every time, every year, technology is changing. Every season, new models are coming up, and with all that, life is becoming more and more accountable, and there is more and more microscopic aspects which need to be taken care of. Like I pointed out, the law can catch up with you if you are not complying with the ICT regulations in your country. What kind of material you are putting on the Facebook page, what kind of material you're sending across, transmitting on the social media. And sometimes you can also take refuge If someone is copying your design, someone is harassing or whatever, you can take shelter from the law. Again, the legal machinery comes in. And sometimes when it is across border, then it has to be international. The Interpol, which is the executive arm of the international agencies, at Paris, all these agencies keep coming in. So the law, the role of law is cannot be disregarded in modern society. It's extremely important. Though, like I said, enforceability depends on accepting the jurisdiction of the body and accepting the treaty. So that's what my take as someone who has studied, dabbled with these themes, in my legal training.
Right, right. So we'll be coming down to the last question of the interview. Now, if we say that at the international level today, money and economic development speak out loud. It's a fact, and we cannot really deny that. But if we see it specifically from the perspective of South Asia, then we see that countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh, for example, are kind of way ahead of India in terms of economic development. Now, according to you, what do you think are the factors, or what are the reasons that are kind of making India lack in terms of economic development? And what are the hindrances on the pathway towards economic development and, in short, India actually becoming a superpower country?
Yeah, I think I like to correct the narrative here, which you've kind of tapped into. I don't want to say that Bangladesh or Vietnam is more developed. I don't agree with you straight away. I would just say perhaps their per capita income might have just soared past India. Might be, because the GDP divided by the population, it's a very simple mathematical calculation, gives you the per capita income. So, statisticians and some people, if you just want to be superficially looking at things, they say, oh, we caught up or we beat that country out. No, I don't agree. India is a very, very strong power economically, the technology, the talent, the disciplines. I mean, look at our proficiency in space. Indian Space Research Organization, Mars Orbiter Mission, PSLV, how many satellites we launch, and the cost at which we launch these vehicles. Look at the supercomputing skills we have. We were denied Param, we were in the good old days, we were denied Cray supercomputers by the US. India went ahead and designed its own massively parallel device-based supercomputer at Center for Advanced Computing at Pune. Look at what we are doing, for example, in pharmaceuticals. One of the biggest, shall we say, exporters of pharmaceutical medicines in the world at the lowest cost. Look at some of the other patents and technologies. Look at the software. I mean, India is a huge software power. So, and look at the industry. India is probably the 10th largest industrial power in the world. But yes, we do lag behind. That's the question. That's your $1 million question. We are lagging behind in terms of per capita, in terms of getting the fruits of development across to every citizen, common person, because we're a very large population. I think the biggest issue here is, how do we skill up? How do we upgrade the talent and expertise of the common man? That is the $1 million question. And if we can democratize that, if we can make this available, whether it is through public, we used to do that, the satellite instructional, telecom experiment site or something, the good old days, giving lessons via satellite. I don't know, sometimes I fantasize maybe we can have huge digital classrooms in villages or something, where we beam across free lessons. Instead of just having government schools, we have a stream of instructors who just sit there. There's a huge digital screen somewhere in the village Chopal, and children are just listening into the lessons, and it's a different stream, different sections, different times. and maybe we have 6, 7 digital screens for different segments of the population. Somehow we have to get that literacy and education and that excitement and that passion to improve oneself. If we get that across at the per capita level, once that happens and we become a more skilled society, a more aware, informed society, I think we'll be ready for global competition. Because remember one thing, today we are not living alone in the world today. Your strength of the economy depends on how globally competitive you are. You're competing with every nation. You just mentioned Vietnam, Bangladesh. These are neighbors, I would say, smaller economies than ours. But you're mentioning them in a positive manner because that shows the kind of competition we are in. So what we need to do is we need to bring in more awareness. We need to bring in more skills. We need to kind of excite people into new kind of professions, not just agriculture, not just people who are simply content. The son of a carpenter says, I will become a carpenter. The son of a plumber says, I will take up, plumbing, and on a seasonal basis, I will go to my farmland. We need to change that culture. We need them to think big. And they can only think big if they can read and write, and if they can converse and engage. And the internet offers such a big opportunity today. You can talk to people, you can go on YouTube, you can just play the guitar, you can sing songs, and you can just be a star. You can be an influencer on the YouTube, and you can be a big star just on the basis of YouTube. You need a good connection. So the rural sector has to get empowered, and to be empowered, they must be informed, they must be educated, and that has to be democratized. And then, of course, you bring in niche areas of competence, high technology. And then, of course, you've got to, and that's happening. That's what they're trying. Niti Aayog and other entities, etc. That's what they're trying. Then you got to pick up different segments and try to pump in more investment, so that people have better infrastructure, better facilities, and they have access to cheaper education, better healthcare. With all that, if that is taken care of, if your necessities in life are taken care of, naturally you can engage, if I may say, in the luxury of academic thought, of professional upgradation. If you're hungry, if you don't have enough food in the family, how are you going to think of sending the child to private colleges or universities, etc., etc.? So because we have now, India is the largest population in the world. I mean, we've overtaken China. We have 1,420 million people. So that's a huge number. So that is where we like. And then, of course, we've got to kind of understand that there has to be not just a regional or a community affiliation. There has to be a national affiliation. We need to think only of the country. We need to think of national interest, not just limited to our province or community or particular ecosystem where we may be. So today it's a country where we need to compete, like you pointed out, against a lot of other stakeholders. It's a fight for space, and we have the capability. We have some of the best talent. Why is it that the chiefs of Google, Microsoft, maybe Pepsi at one time, and some of these high technology companies, all these have been Indians. So we can do it abroad, we can do it here too. But to do that, we need to get our rural sector really up and running. And to do that, the societies, the communities must not think only of the primary industry. They should not think only of the primary sector. They need to think of secondary and tertiary sector also. Tertiary, the production, the manufacturing, the innovation, because that's where the money lies. Today, it's all about IPR. If you're sitting in a little island, if you have the internet and you have the ingenuity and the innovation, and you invent a product, a software product, you can still be a millionaire. So it all depends on, the availability of infrastructure, and more than that, the skill. Again, I repeat, the awareness, the expertise, the passion. The passion will come if you are aware. If you're aware of the subject, if you're familiar with the theme, then only will you pick and choose the area which you like. So, you want to be A lawyer, yes, but then in law, you want to be a corporate lawyer or a constitutional lawyer or a family-based lawyer, or a criminal-based lawyer or a patent lawyer. What kind of attorney do you want to pick? You want to be in general social science. You want to be an environmentalist. What kind of? So you got to pick and choose. So these are the questions which our folks in the village, our children in the village must start asking doctors, engineers, lawyers, consultants. This is the whole winds should change because we have proved it. It's an intelligent country. It's a hard-working country. It's a disciplined nation. There is a moralistic kind of temper and approach. There's a very strong family value-based system which runs our society more than the law. It's the families which run our societies. The children are mentored and shepherded and guided by their parents, by their elders. So if we can use all this with education and skills, I think it's a great combination. It's going to take time, but it also needs some degree of commitment. And I think maybe our private corporate sector should spend more on this. Corporate social responsibility should be taken more seriously. If the government is trying its best, but government's resources are also limited. I mean, the private sector is amazing today. It has a lot of wealth, and many people are contributing. There are philanthropists in the country. There are a lot of foundations. More of this culture needs to be developed, more of corporate social responsibility, more of taking up welfare projects should be undertaken in the rural sector. And so this is, I would give utmost priority to this thing. And if you do that, everything will look up. People will demand more. People will even make political processes very, very tough. I mean, they will be demanding from their representatives, we want this to be done. And they will be very, very choosy in electing people to the parliament. And everything will change because it's the people who run the show. It's not just a small segment. It's ultimately the community, the people at the grassroots level which run the show, which wield the power. They field the candidates, they put the candidates in power. So if they are informed and if they are aware, they can really they can really make things very tough for everybody. So this is how I think the country's processes need to change a little bit. And once there is more economic prosperity, etc., there'll also be more compliance, and people will be taking pride in their national systems and national processes, and that will be very fine. That will be very good. Last thing is, of course, my own tribes people, the bureaucracy and the red tape, which we also talk about sometimes in foreign direct investment, getting it going. Well, the bureaucracy also gives a lot of advice, but there has to be a political will. There has to be social and political will, oneness and unification, resonance on common themes, national themes has to be there. If that will is forged, that consciousness is forged, I think everything will start looking up. And from the philosophical internal kind of processes, this will start manifesting into physical processes, and there will be more integration, more compliance with state-of-the-art standards, and more competitive spirit, and more, I think, proficiency and expertise to get one's recognition and pride of place in community of nations, international trade, international commerce, and also in the multilateral fora. So that's how that's what I would recommend.
This is really fantastic, Professor. So with this, we come to the end of the interview. Thanks a lot, Professor, for taking out time from your busy schedule and coming for the interview. It really means a lot to the entire Diplomania Club. And also for me personally, I'm just really so grateful that I got the opportunity to have this kind of, a candid conversation with you and interview. Thanks a lot, Professor.